So this video I would say is for those who love stats, because I'm talking all about stats, the stats that have to do with my reading year, with my 2019 reading year. What I did is that I had a set of questions. The whole point of me being able to do this year in books is for me to look at my reading patterns, to see exactly how I can improve of them in the new year, to see what it is that I'm doing right, what it is that I could be doing better, and just to give you an overview of the type of books and the quantity and quality of books I read in 2019. So we'll start with the number of books I read this year. So I read a total of 143 books this year, all of varying lengths and sizes. Although, to be honest, so far I've actually read 139 books, but I'm currently reading 4 books at the moment, which I am fairly certain I'll be able to finish before December 31st. So yeah, I read 143 books this year. So next, I'm looking at the total number of pages I read in the year, and it came to a total of 51,661 pages. I read 51,661 pages this year alone, which I think is actually an improvement. I mentioned in my anticipated reads of 2019 video last year that I've been in a depressive episode for the last couple of years, and I was very excited because it seems like 2019 was the year when I was going to get back into reading again. So being able to read so many pages, being able to read so many books definitely makes me very happy, because yes, I am back to reading and enjoying reading, and it makes me so happy. Okay, then I looked at how many female authors I read in the year, and the total number was 56. So out of 143 books, 56 of those books were written by female authors. Now 85 of those books were written by male authors. So I read 56 female authors, and I read 85 male authors in 2019, and I read only 1 non-binary author this year. That is something I definitely want to improve on going into 2020. I do want to read more non-binary authors. I do want to read more female authors. So if you have any non-binary author recommendations, please drop them down in the comments below. It's much appreciated. I want to, like I said, I definitely want to read more non-binary authors in 2020. Next, I looked at the number of LGBTQ plus books I read in 2019, and I read only 19, which is surprising to me. But then again, I do have quite a lot of LGBTQ plus books. I just didn't read as many of them as I thought I would, which is interesting, which is very, very interesting. But that is definitely a number I intend, not hope, I intend to increase in the coming year, because 19 is too small. Then I looked at how many 5-star books I read in the year, because remember, I read 143 books, and out of 143 books, 54 books were 5-star reads for me. That is amazing. It just goes to show how much of an amazing reading year I had. 54 5-star books, and then the less than, because that means like I had less than what, 89. That's like, yeah, so like the remaining 89 books were split between 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 stars. I think I only read about 3 1-star books this year, and about 5 2-star books, 5 to 6 2-star books, and then the rest were just in between 3 and 4 stars, which for me, once again, is a pretty decent, really decent number. I'm really, really proud of myself. But 54 5-star books, wow. Okay, then I looked at how many book series did I read. Now this is also looking at series that I might not have finished. Most of these book series I finished, but some of them I started. But so long as I read at least 2 books in the series, they made this list. If it was only 1 book that I read in the series, I didn't count it. So I looked at the number of series I read this year, and I read a total of 24. So I read 24 book series this year, which, once again, very, very impressive number. I remember when I was doing my book series I want to read in 2019 video, and I had such a long list. To know that I hit 24 of those book series is making me very, 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 very happy at the moment. Okay, then I also looked at how many fantasy books I read, because you all know how much I love fantasy. And this is where things started getting very, very interesting for me, because I read 58 fantasy books. I read 58 fantasy books in 2019, but I read 59 contemporary books in 2019. And I'm so shocked because I'm like, hold up, like fantasy is my, like, I love fantasy. I adore fantasy. I haven't been reading as much contemporary books as I wanted to in the last couple of years. So this year was also the year when I started slowly getting back into contemporary books. But I read 59 contemporary books, and that is what is still making me shooketh. But I think that what also helped me with that was because I read a lot of the contemporary books on audio, and it was easier for me to binge them. My fantasy books, I like to read my fantasy books, like physical copy of my fantasy books. So I tend to take my time more with them. But yeah, I read 59 contemporary books and 58 fantasy books. Then I read only 5 science fiction books, which is a number that is small because I do like sci-fi, not as much as fantasy and clearly not as much as contemporary, but I think I like it more than just reading 5 sci-fi books in the year. So that is definitely a number I want to improve on in 2020. And then I looked at how many non-fiction books I read, and I put it at 4. It should have been 5, but I still haven't finished Bird by Anne Lamott. So these 4 books covered non-fiction books and also covered self-help books, but more books that have to do with writing, etc. So yeah, I read 4 non-fiction books in 2019, and then I looked at how many comics, mangas, webtoons I read in 2019, and I'm actually really surprised because I read only 3. Now this is surprising to me because I love comics, I love manga, oh my god, I love manga, I love webtoons, I love manhwa, like, so it's just so funny because I'm like, all these things that I love, I didn't really spend that much time reading them in 2019. What is happening? Is my love diminishing? No. So I definitely want to read more of them. I think what has also been for me is because I'm trying to find more ways to support like comic writers and comic artists and mangakas. So I might probably do get like a subscription for me to be able to read all these books digitally, so that I know that I'm supporting them in some way. But yes, I only read 3 comics, manga / webtoons in 2019, and then I looked at how many middle grade books I read this year, and I only read 2. That is surprising because once again, I do enjoy middle grade. I love middle grade. But it seemed like maybe 2019 was not my middle grade year. So that is also a number I want to improve on in 2020. Then I looked at how many YA books I read, because you all know I read a lot of YA. Like, YA is partly part of my brand. I read 54 YA books in 2019. Like I said, not bad. Out of 143 books that I read this year, 54 of them were YA books. Impressive, very impressive. Then I looked at how many new adult books I read. Now, new adult is actually a genre I really only discovered this year. Yeah, it was either YA or adult books, but new adult, I didn't really read new adult books before this year, and I just slowly started catching up on like old titles and new titles, etc. And I read 11 new adult books this year. Not bad for, I repeat, a genre that I just discovered this year. Then I looked at how many adult books I read in 2019, and I read 51 adult books in 2019, very close to my YA book. So it's pretty even for me. I read adult books, I read YA books. I want to see which one of them would be more in 2020, because I have a lot of adult books on my TBR, but I also have a lot of YA books on my TBR. So this is going to be a very interesting, 2020 is going to be a very interesting reading year for me. And then I looked at the shortest book I read this year. Now, the shortest book I read in this year was Demon in the Wood by BARDUGO, which was just 30 pages. This is the origin story of the Darkling that came in the new reprint of Ruin and Rising. I enjoyed the story. I love seeing more of an understanding of this character and how he became who he was in the series. So yeah, that was the shortest book I read at 30 pages, The Demon in the Wood. Then I looked at the longest book I read this year, and that is, of course, Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas, which came to 984 pages, which I'm getting into adult fantasy in 2020, so I know that number is going to look insignificant. I can't wait to compare my longest book of 2019 with my longest book of 2020. It's going to be a ride, a real ride. But yeah, that is my year in books. Those are the stats. If you like stats, I hope I made you happy. If you don't like numbers, I still hope I made you happy, for you to just see how my reading taste is slowly evolving and changing. This is something I definitely I intend to be doing in my channel every year, just to see how things progress for me as the years go by, and how my reading tastes change as the years go by. But yeah, that is my video. That is my year in books. If you like this video, please do not forget to give it a big thumbs up. Check out my other videos, subscribe if you want to, and click on the notification bell if you do decide to subscribe. I make new videos every Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and I'll see you soon. Until then, stay passionate, love books, love yourself. Bye.